There's a version of homeownership that a lot of people are living inside right now, and they don't have a name for it. Mortgage gets paid every month, the insurance is current, taxes are handled. And yet, the house always seems to need something. Something breaks, something wears out, something that should have been a small repair turns into a conversation about financing. And the frustrating part is that on paper, everything looks fine. The bills are paid, the accounts aren't empty, but the house keeps asking for more. Most people, when this happens, reach for an explanation. House is old. The previous owners didn't take care of it. It's just bad timing. Those explanations feel true, but none of them are the real answer. See, here's what's actually happening. Most homeowners are managing the present tense of their house. Is the mortgage current? Yes. Is the insurance paid? Yes. Is anything broken right now? No. And in that framework, everything is fine. The problem is that a house doesn't exist only in the present tense, it exists on timelines. The roof is aging, the HVAC is accumulating wear, the water heater is working its way towards the end of its useful life. Not today, maybe not this year, but on a schedule that started the day the house was built. Managing the present tense of a house is not the same thing as managing the house. One tracks what's happening now, the other tracks what's already underway. I want to give you a real example of what this looks like when it compounds. Not in a single family home, in a building, because the pattern is clearer at scale. And the emotional reaction is exactly the same. So I spent years in property management, large portfolios, multiple buildings, boards, owners, the whole structure. And one of the most consistent things I watched happen was the moment an assessment got announced. So, in a co op or a condo building, an assessment is what happens when the reserve fund can't cover a major repair. Building needs a new boiler, the roof needs to be replaced, the elevator needs a major overhaul. And so a charge goes out to every unit owner, sometimes a few $100s, sometimes thousands, sometimes more. The people who showed up to the meetings, who read the board minutes, who paid attention to what was being discussed about the building systems, those people were not surprised. They'd seen it coming. They understood that the building was aging, that deferred maintenance has a payment date. The people who were shocked were the ones who thought their monthly common charges covered everything. They paid every month, nothing was broken, therefore, the house was fine. And when the assessment came, a lot of them said some version of the same thing. We voted for you to make our lives better. And that was directed at the board with the energy of, what is this and why is this happening to me? The board, in almost every case, was doing the responsible thing. They were maintaining the building, they were authorizing the repairs that had to happen. But the owner wasn't in the room for any of that. They were in the present tense. The maintenance fee went out, nothing was visibly broken, so everything was fine until it wasn't. Now, if you own a single family home, you don't have a board. You don't have monthly meeting minutes to review. You don't have an assessment notice showing up in your mailbox. What you have is a house that is quietly aging on timelines you can't see, with a replacement schedule nobody sent to you. And the way most people manage that is exactly the same as those unit owners. Payment is current. Nothing is broken. Therefore, everything is fine. But that framework is only tracking the present tense. And the present tense doesn't tell you anything about what's underway. The HVAC that's been running for 14 years is underway. The water heater that's been in the garage for 11 is underway. The roof that passed inspection 7 years ago is underway. None of those systems are broken today. All of them are moving toward a replacement. The replacement cost was always going to come. The only question is whether the money is ready for it when it does. There's a term that gets used in professional property management that almost never gets explained to homeowners: deferred maintenance. Most people, when they hear that, they picture a landlord who didn't fix something, a leaking pipe that got ignored, peeling paint, something visibly neglected. And sometimes that's true. But the more common version of deferred maintenance isn't neglect, it's postponement. It's the decision, conscious or not, to keep running a system past its effective lifespan because it's still technically functioning. The HVAC is struggling, but it's still running, so we'll wait. The roof is near the end of its life, but it's not leaking, so we're fine. The water heater is 12 years old, but the hot water's fine, so we'll wait. In each of these cases, waiting feels like a reasonable decision. Nothing is catastrophically wrong. Why spend the money now? But here's what waiting actually does: it doesn't eliminate the cost, it just moves it. And it almost always moves it to a worse moment. When the HVAC fails in July, you're not calling for an estimate, you're calling for rescue. And rescue costs more than planning. The repair that costs $9,000 on your schedule costs 11 or 12,000 on the contractor's emergency schedule. The roof that could have been replaced during a dry October gets replaced after a winter leak accelerates the damage. Deferred maintenance is not free. It's a loan against future you, taken out at a rate you didn't negotiate. Let me give you a framework for what you're actually managing. Every major system in a house has an expected useful lifespan. Not a guarantee, not a warranty, an honest estimate of how long a well-maintained system runs before replacement becomes more cost-effective than continued repair. HVAC, a well-maintained central system, runs roughly 15 to 20 years. Gas furnaces on the longer end of that, heat pumps on the shorter. After year 15, repair calls start to accumulate. After year 18, you're often throwing money at something on borrowed time. Roofing depends heavily on the material. Standard asphalt shingles, 20 to 25 years in normal climates. Less if the roof wasn't properly installed or lacks adequate ventilation. The inspection passes it. The age tells a different story. Water heater, 8 to 12 years for a tank unit. Tankless runs longer, closer to 20. Most people don't think about this one until cold water shows up unexpectedly. Electrical panel, 25 to 40 years, depending on load and quality. Now, the ones that become problems are usually the ones undersized when installed and running at high utilization ever since. Appliances, refrigerators, 10 to 13 years. Washer, dryer, roughly 10 to 14 years. Dishwasher, 9 to 12. These feel small compared to the structural systems, but they cluster. And when they cluster, they add up. Now, none of these numbers are the day something breaks. They're the window where replacement becomes the responsible decision. Inside that window, you have options. You can plan, you can save, you can shop. Outside the window, the system decides for you. There's a version of this that goes beyond the replacement cost itself, because deferred maintenance doesn't just get more expensive. In some cases, it creates damage that wasn't there before. A roof is the clearest example. A roof near the end of its life isn't a roof that's about to cost you $15,000. It's a roof that's about to cost you $15,000 plus whatever it costs to repair the water that got in while you waited. The shingles fail, water finds a path, the decking underneath starts to rot, the insulation absorbs the moisture and loses its value. The drywall in the ceiling below starts to stain. If enough time passes, mold becomes part of the conversation. What was a roofing project is now a roofing project plus a structural repair, plus insulation replacement, plus drywall and paint, plus potentially remediation. The roof was always going to cost $15,000. The rest of it was optional. It was purchased with the decision to wait. The same pattern runs through other systems. A hot water heater that fails slowly doesn't always announce itself with a clean break. Sometimes it seeps around the base, into the subfloor, into the framing below, if it's on an upper level. By the time someone notices, the visible damage is the smaller part of the problem. The subfloor has to come up. The framing has to be inspected. If it sat long enough, that's a much larger project than a $2,000 hot water heater replacement. An electrical panel running beyond its effective life, undersized for the load it's been carrying for 20 years, doesn't just need to be replaced. It can trip breakers repeatedly, which stresses the appliances connected to it. In the worst case, it becomes a fire hazard. The panel replacement that should have happened at $8,000 becomes a panel replacement plus an insurance conversation plus whatever the electrical fault damaged on the way out. None of these outcomes are inevitable. They're all downstream of the same decision, waiting because nothing was visibly broken yet. The replacement cost is fixed by the system. The damage cost is chosen. Here's how I think about this: the invisible ledger. Every system in a house is running an invisible ledger. Every year it operates, a fraction of its replacement cost accrues. Not on paper, not in any account, just as a reality waiting to land somewhere. The HVAC runs for 15 years, then needs $12,000 to replace. That means every year it operated, $800 of future cost was accumulating. The roof runs for 22 years before it needs a full replacement at 14,000. It's about $630 a year. Building in the background, invisible because nothing had gone wrong. The invisible ledger doesn't care whether you're tracking it. It doesn't wait for a convenient moment. It just runs. The only choice you have is whether money's waiting when it comes due. Most people aren't tracking the invisible ledger, not because they're careless, because nobody told them it existed. They were handed a payment. They were told to protect that payment. Nobody said, here's the other set of obligations that come with the house. The invisible ledger was always there. It was just never made visible. The board meeting version and the living room version are the same thing. Someone's paying attention to what's current and not watching what's underway. The fix isn't a spreadsheet. It isn't an app. It isn't panic. It's a shift in what you're watching. Payments current, nothing's broken. That's the present tense. How old is the HVAC? When was the roof last replaced? How long has the water heater been running? That's the ledger. One of those is the minimum, the other is the plan. The people who own property without that second layer, they're not bad with money. They're not careless. They're operating without information they were never given. If you know someone who just bought a house or someone who's been calling their house a money pit for years, send them this. Not because it'll fix anything that's already broken, but because the next decision they make about their house will be a different one if they've seen this. That's actually what this is for. Drop a comment with the oldest system still running in your house: roof, HVAC, water heater, whatever it is. I want to see where people are actually sitting, because most people genuinely don't know. And that number tells you more about your near-term financial exposure than almost anything else. Subscribe if you want to keep going with this. This channel is for people who are done finding out the hard way. You now know what an invisible ledger is. You know that deferred maintenance isn't free. It's a loan taken out quietly against a future version of you at a rate you never agreed to. The house isn't conspiring against you. It's just running on timelines, and now you can see them.